Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Believe in best.
Coming up tonight, another soul lost to suicide in the capital. The Davis administration firing back at former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis. And a Floridian takes Conch to the world. Welcome to our news and thank you for joining us. I'm Candino Knowles. The woman who died in an apparent suicide on Thursday night was a vocal victim of domestic violence who used social media to share her story. Jared Higgs tells us the woman sent a troubling voice note to a friend less than an hour before her death.
Relatives tell Our News the woman who was found dead in an apparent suicide at the Land Shark Hotel is 25-year-old Carissa Culmer, the mother of a 2-year-old son. According to police, it was around 8 p.m. when they were called to the motel on Cable Beach. When there, they were directed to an upstairs room where they say Culmer was found hanging by the neck in front of her young son.
At this time, we believe that the person would have taken a cord and perhaps used the leverage from the ceiling and hung themselves.
Our News spoke to Culmer's best friend of 18 years, 28-year-old Rosanna Cooper, on the phone.
She was a very sweet soul, pure-hearted. She was courageous, but yet she was still humble. She was very determined and honest and grateful.
Cooper says she got a troubling message from Culmer at around 7:30 on Thursday evening. In it, Culmer can be heard sobbing and telling Cooper who her 2-year-old son should be left with.
She just was explaining how she just couldn't take life no more and how she's so sorry that she have to do what she got to do and she is so tired and she felt like her baby daddy got away.
Culmer's story was well known. An orphan who grew up in foster care, she was a vocal victim of domestic violence.
Constantly, I don't even sleep with the windows open. And I shouldn't have to be living as if I killed somebody before, if I do some foolishness.
A video she published on her Facebook went viral in November and resulted in her being interviewed by members of the media and recognized in the Senate by that chamber's president, Lachelle Adderley.
I submit that we must move swiftly. The many victims who now lay in their cold graves did not have the luxury of time.
Culmer's death thrusted her story back to the forefront of the national conversation on domestic violence, with her original video being widely shared, and many politicians and advocacy groups expressing condolences at her death. Many suggested that it was too late to share the video, with Culmer now deceased. During her life, Culmer slammed the police and government's approach to domestic violence victims. Her best friend said there's no doubt that her lack of family support contributed to the mental health challenges she struggled with.
She also say, if only she could meet her parents and just get, a clear understanding on why did they left her. Like she felt like she wasn't enough.
Culmer's son is in the custody of the state until next of kin is determined. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
And police on the scene of the country's latest homicide, which occurred on 8th Street, The Grove. We are told that it was around 5:30 this afternoon when the body of an adult male was found with gunshot wounds and he appeared to be lifeless. The police also reporting that there was another male on the scene suffering from gunshot wounds. Our News also on the scene tonight. We'll have more on this, and you can visit Our News Bahamas on Facebook to get the latest. And the Davis administration firing back at comments made by former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis. Dr. Minnis telling the Tribune it was irresponsible of the Prime Minister to impugn on non-profit organizations affiliated with his former administration's food program, warning that the Prime Minister's comments could make it difficult to attract private sector assistance in the future. On Wednesday, Davis said an NGO attached to the Minnis administration's national food program had close to $2 million sitting in its bank account that was not used to help Bahamians. He said the money has since been returned to the government. But Dr. Minnis called it a, quoting him now, stupid, immature statement and used other expletives in his comments. Today, Press Secretary Clint Watson had this to say.
As far as a response to it, Prime Minister Davis was aware of what was said. I don't want to misquote him. I want to quote the Prime Minister. Quote, I look forward to it.
Economic Affairs Minister Michael Alkidis also hitting back at the opposition, which yesterday questioned if the Davis administration's $236 million repurchase agreement with Goldman Sachs International is indicative of the lack of confidence creditors have in government's ability to repay their loans. In today's weekly press briefing, Alkidis stressed that the government is having no difficulty raising money. Last week, the Ministry of Finance announced that government sold and transferred 235,916,000 U.S. Treasuries from its sinking funds to Goldman Sachs, which will be considered for purchase in 24 months.
The primary objective of our debt management strategy is to lower the cost of our debt. Secondarily, it's to manage the maturity profile. And the repo transactions are not some convoluted exotic structure, but they play a significant part in global financial markets every day. The repo transaction allowed the government to leverage the assets of the sinking fund while continuing to receive income on those assets and continuing to invest in and grow the sinking fund.
The last of 3 Progressive Liberal Party parliamentarians to be placed before the courts will not face trial. Bethany McDermott reports that former Environment Minister Ken Dorset's case has been dropped.
More than 4 years after he was charged in the magistrate's court with extorting $120,000 from businessman Jonathan Ash, OPM Press Secretary Clint Watson announced the government has abandoned the prosecution of former Environment Minister Ken Dorset.
The witness, Mr. Jonathan Ash, indicated his intention to not testify. Therefore, the Director of Public Prosecutions, having been advised by the senior officer, having conducted the matter, signed a nolle prosecute in the matter of R. versus Kendrick Dorset. This means that the prosecution has insufficient evidence to proceed, and therefore the case is abandoned.
Back in 2017, Dorset was charged with 4 counts of extortion, 4 counts of bribery, and 1 count of misconduct in public office. However, prosecutors later decided to proceed with the bribery charge only. The former minister was freed on $50,000 bail after he spent 48 hours in custody. Dorset was the first of 3 PLP parliamentarians accused of misconduct. Former Cabinet Minister Shane Gibson and former Public Hospitals Authority Chair Frank Smith were also charged but acquitted of the charges. Ash was the key witness in both Dorset and Gibson's cases. Recently, Prime Minister Philip Davis was asked about Dorset's matter.
Yes, I still believe it's a political witch hunt, but I will not interfere with the process. The process will continue to take its course. The Attorney General and the DPP would look at it, determine whether what course will be followed. I'm not involved in that, because I'm not going to interfere with the system.
In the run-up to the 2017 general election, former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis repeatedly vowed that corrupt members of the former Christie administration would be dealt with. Back in 2017, other colleagues of Dorset weighed in, like Education Minister Glenys Hannah Martin, who cautioned the Minnis administration.
We have to ensure that what is happening is not part of a political exercise, and that while it may be policy, that it's not political.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Bethany McDermott.
With the CDC lowering the Bahamas' travel health advisory level from 4 to 3, one hotelier says he's hopeful that the drop in COVID cases could lead to further relaxation of protocols as hotels remain under pressure from visitors. Cale Campbell reports.
A number of visitors to the Bahamas do not like the fact that these positions are in fact in place.
Baha Mar's Senior Vice President of Government and Community Relations, Robert Sands, says they've received complaints from visitors who are not happy with COVID protocols in place, such as the mask mandate. Sands says, based on other countries who are lowering, if not removing, their restrictions, he believes the Bahamas will follow course in due time.
There remains pressure from our guests to reduce further restrictions. but we are governed, we are a country of laws, and we are governed by policy and procedures. But we are satisfied in due course that the government will address or hear our concerns and some of the remaining protocols in place and reduce them in due course.
Sands welcomes the lowering of the travel advisory warning level, saying it's a step in the right direction.
This elevation goes a long way in sustaining the tourism sector and ensuring that the current pent-up demand for the destination goes unabated. The industry is very grateful to the population of the Bahamas for playing their part in ensuring that these numbers are very low.
Sands said despite a number of hotels being closed for renovations, there's been an uptick in business. He explains this is due to a perfect storm of different factors.
Yes, we do see increased numbers and occupancies in hotels that are currently open. And also, we know that it's a large amount of taking advantage of the vacation market sector. And also, the cruise lines are also getting back to a level of buoyancy.
For our news, I'm Cale Campbell.
And things are certainly heating up. We've got Greg Thompson with the first look at weather. Greg?
Thanks, Gandino. Welcome, everybody, for our Friday evening look at weather. Another warm evening outside our studios this evening. Temperatures also in the mid-70s, 77, with just some patchy clouds around, so we call it mostly clear. Those winds out of the south at 9 miles per hour, bringing in that warm air mass, and your feels-like temperature standing at 80 degrees. Satellite view, what we are looking at, high-pressure ridge starting to slide out towards the east, paving the way for a very active frontal boundary now across North Florida. Showers and thunderstorms associated with that boundary will drop across that area by tomorrow. We do have a couple of isolated showers out ahead of that across the South Florida area. Most of that should stay to the north, but we expect this frontal boundary to get near late tomorrow afternoon and continue through our area by tomorrow evening. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
And still to come on our news, a U.S. official agrees Putin should be punished for Ukraine's invasion, and unrest in Abaco as teachers protest. Plus, Miss Bahamas is on her way back to Puerto Rico for the Miss World pageant. It's all coming up when our news returns.
Got size at 6'5". Hi, this is Shamika.
A top United States Embassy official is insisting Russian President Vladimir Putin should be punished. U.S. Chargé d'Affaires Yusha Pitts sharing her strong views on the matter when she appeared as a guest on RTV's On the Record with Jerome Sawyer.
Regarding the issue of punishment, absolutely, the world needs to take notice and to take steps to punish Putin for his irresponsible behavior.
The Russian president ordering the invasion of Ukraine 2 weeks ago, a move that has isolated Russia from the rest of the world.
Then something like this happens, and it's almost a wake-up call. It's like, look, it's a reminder. Freedom is not free. You have to fight for it. You have to defend it. And I think that is exactly what's happening right now. And frankly, in my career, I've served in countries that were not free. And once you are living that reality, you are very, very sensitive to it.
Earlier this month, the Bahamas joined 140 other United Nations member states to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine and demand that it withdraw its military forces from that country. During an emergency session of the UN General Assembly, 141 member states voted in favor of a resolution that affirmed Ukraine's sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity. 5 countries voted against the resolution, and 35 countries abstained. A shortage of teachers at Patrick J. Bethel High School prompting protests in Abaco this morning.
What do we want? Teachers! When we want it? Now! What do we want? Teachers! When we want it? Now!
Bahamas Union of Teachers President Belinda Wilson has repeatedly spoken out about the severe shortage of teachers at the school that was damaged by Hurricane Dorian in September 2019. Just last week, Education Minister Glenys Hannah Martin addressed the shortage, saying officials are working to fill the more than half a dozen positions. She said a part of the delay was finding adequate housing on the island, still suffering from a housing shortage more than 2 years after the storm. In response to today's protest, State Education Minister Zane Lightbourne saying the ministry will take action to get at least some teachers on the island as soon as possible.
We're going to get them more teachers. We met yesterday when we learned that they were going to take some form of action, and we tried to see if we could expedite the process. Teachers were identified for the last about 2 weeks now, and just the process of getting them to the island, getting them paid, making sure that they have everything that they need to move.
And islands across the country participating in international ship and port security drills designed to test the response times of first responders and best practices of all parties involved in the event of a major terrorist attack. Our Megan Shepard witnessed the drill over in Grand Bahama.
We got a call from our portside security that there was an explosion. She noticed that there was a fire, and also the fact that there were some employees that seems to be injured. And so we responded as we would normally do, our employees. Once that happened, we got on the scene, we assessed the scene. We then call in for emergency response. And so our employees were basically here just waiting for the emergency people to respond. Shortly after that, the emergency people responded. The police arrived first, and then the defense force, followed by the ambulance and the fire.
Smoke filled the air, bodies tossed. This was the scene at Bahama Rock facilities as emergency personnel quickly responded. Thankfully, it was a simulation, a part of an emergency drill to test response times to major incidents. Port Security Facility Officer Brian Burrow says that Bahama Rock employees are trained consistently, and this demonstration went well. Next up, local emergency personnel. Press Liaison Officer Teresita Pinder.
Initial contact would have been persons from our bomb expert unit, fire department, CID, scenes of crime, all the relevant parties we need on the scene right away. That was done. Our response times was good. Explosive experts came on scene, ascertained that there was a device there. They checked to make sure all was clear before officers can come on and ascertain and investigate the situation. That was done. The all clear was given.
Now, the drill took over 1 hour and a half to complete. However, both agencies say they are pleased with the response time based on the circumstances here on scene.
You also notice that there may have been a delay because they found what they suspect to be a bomb on site. And so they had to bring in the bomb squad to make sure that they can get the all clear so that employees could return, at least so that the rest of the emergency people could come in and take care of the situation. This was an exercise in a real life situation. It could take even longer, but this exercise would prepare us for a real life situation. So there's really no goal time, but we're able to record the time that they do respond. And so we would know in the event that if there really is an emergency, the time that we may expect, or even an improvement on the time that they'll be here to assist us.
ASP Pinder says the next step is a debriefing on what went well and what needs improvement.
At the end of the day, we're going to be assessed to find out now how well we responded, how well we assessed the situation, and what did we do as a result of that. And all parties, Bahama Rock and all other parties, will now assess and see what changes need to be made and what procedures we need to put in place.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Megan Shepard.
Still to come in our news, Miss Bahamas returns to Puerto Rico for the Miss World competition. And later, a Florida vendor takes Conch to the world. We've got the details when Our News returns.
Got size at 6'5". Hi, this is Shamika.
This is our news. Welcome back. Back in December 2021, the Miss World pageant had to be stopped due to COVID concerns. In fact, it was stopped just before the final night. Several of the queens from around the world even got sick. Miss Bahamas World 2021 Sienna Evans came back home and had to adjust, but tomorrow her journey continues. She heads back to Puerto Rico as part of the top 40, but stopped by our studios for a quick chat ahead of her trip.
Now the top 40 contestants are going to be going back to Puerto Rico so that we can have our finale. I was a part of the 25 judges picks, which was, none of us were aware of it. There was a top 15 girls who had won the fast track events. And so when I found out, I was so ecstatic. I couldn't believe that I had made the top 40.
Sienna's Beauty with a Purpose project has also made it to the semifinals, and she says she's really excited about that.
What I really wanted to do was provide accessible healthcare to Bahamians, and so my company, Access Medical, partnered with the Bahamian government to provide free testing for COVID, as well as we launched a platform that uses artificial intelligence to match people to therapists so that they can have counseling in their home for any related, COVID-related stress events. I'm very proud that my project made it to the semifinals at Miss World.
And Sienna also sharing that she's riding on the success of Miss Bahamas Universe, Chantel O'Brien.
Chantel and I met in 2015 at another pageant, and I've been following her journey. She's been doing an incredible job, and I was so proud of her when I saw that she made top 10 at Miss Universe. I've been using that as an inspiration for myself because really the Bahamas is seen as a non-contender for crowns and pageantry, but she's made history, and hopefully I can make my country proud as well.
All right, still to come, one vendor takes Conch to the world, and your extended weather forecast is on its way. That's coming up when our news returns.
Got size at 6'5". Hi, this is Shamika.
Welcome back to our news. Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with your extended weather forecast. Good evening, Greg.
Thanks again, Condino. Welcome back, everybody, for our second look at weather. Very active cold front across North Florida with some showers and thunderstorms associated with that, and a low-pressure system will continue to drag itself slowly towards the south and east across central and south Florida by this evening. Tomorrow, we expect that frontal boundary to get into the Bahamas by tomorrow afternoon, but that low-pressure system and the tight pressure gradient will create some very strong winds out ahead of that front and behind it. So by tonight, winds expected to pick up significantly. They will be out of the southwest to west at 15 to 25 knots. We're advising you boaters to remain in port tonight and tomorrow, and possibly even into Sunday as this frontal system continues to move towards the south. We expect this to get into here by tomorrow afternoon. As I mentioned, some showers and thunderstorms associated with that. But behind that, a nice change in the air mass as a cooler air mass will be spreading across area. Not for long. We should see temperatures start to rise by Tuesday, Wednesday, but at least we get a cool down by the early part of next week. Boating forecast, as I mentioned, advisory posted, but we urging you boaters to remain in port tonight. South to southwest winds at 15 to 25 knots ahead of that frontal boundary. Shifting tomorrow after that front goes through northwest at 20 to 30 knots. The sea is very rough, 5 to 8 feet over the ocean tonight. They will be building tomorrow. Your low tide will be at 8:34 tonight. For the central and southeastern islands, a caution flag posted for you guys. Southeasterly wind flow at 15 to 20 knots. Your seas will be running 4 to 6 feet over the open waters. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through next Friday. Strong cold front expected to get through our area by tomorrow afternoon. And don't forget, on Sunday, advance your clocks ahead an hour. Daylight savings time begins. Back to you, Candino.
All right, thanks a lot for the reminder, Greg. Conch is an undisputed favorite dish for Bahamians. In this report, Jerome Sawyer introduces us to a South Floridian with Bahamian roots who is making a living off her affinity with conch.
Angela Wiley's grandparents were Lutherans who migrated to Florida. As a girl in Jensen Beach, she remembers conch as a community staple.
My mom and my dad and all the neighbors in Jensen Beach, they had this little small boat, and almost every week they used to go conching. So, if we didn't have anything else, we had conch.
She learned how to make fine conch cuisine from her mother, which eventually led to her starting Alfreda's Conch Shack, named after her mom.
I used to go on the street and sell the conch salad. So eventually, I say, everybody keeps saying this conch salad is so good. So let me test it out. So I started getting into events and traveling all over the different seafood festivals. And it just kind of exploded from there.
Her famous conch dishes are featured at U.S. festivals and events. She says her patrons are eager to share their Bahamian experiences the moment they notice conch on the menu.
Everybody comes with a story about the Bahamas, when they were in the Bahamas. Oh, my dad went to Bahamas. Oh, we have a house in the Bahamas. I've lived there for 20 years. It's just story after story about their experience in the Bahamas. It's a really good feeling, especially to know that people enjoy your food and want to know where you're going to be next.
And next for her is the famed Jazz in the Gardens Festival in Miami Gardens this weekend, where she expects Alfreda's Conch Shack to be a favorite with festival goers.
I've been trying to get into jazz for 10 years. The last time that I was at Jazz in the Gardens, Mary J. Blige was there performing there. So 10 years later, here I am. I'm going back as a vendor with Mary J. Blige. But it really feels good. So that was on my bucket list. Now I can scratch it off. The cracked conch, the conch fritters, the conch salad. I also do fish tacos, shrimp tacos, seafood platters. I try to make everything as if I was going out to eat. So when you get your food from me, I want it to be hot, I want it to be fresh, and I want it to taste good.
Her conchs come through a distributor imported from other Caribbean islands, but she admits the Bahamian conch is still the best out there because of its refined texture. Reporting for our News, I'm Jerome Sawyer.
Thanks, Jerome, and thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire news team, I'm Kendino Knowles. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Until then, have a fantastic evening.